Well, good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here, an honor to be here at this incredible new facility. And Denny, just my real congratulations to you. I had a chance to walk through here about 10 months ago, and I could understand the vision, but not completely appreciate the vision. And now to see it in its full creation is really, really impressive. And quite a thing, not only for San Diego, but for California, and I think this country in general. Before we get to the panel, I really just wanted to say a few words about how Life Technologies is thinking about regenerative medicine, and give you at least one person's perspective or one company's perspective on how we see it all playing out. Maybe first to elucidate that is to set the groundwork that I think in any field of business today, anyone who, like you out there, is making investments in the future, it's very difficult. You know, our times are uncertain, and you get a lot of advice to perhaps pull in the frontier, if you will, be more cautious, and not really push the envelope. And you know, many businesses obviously have had to do that because of the economic environment. And certainly we've at Life Technologies had to make our own changes as well. But at the same time, when you think about regenerative medicine, I do believe this is an area where we should be pushing the frontiers and really embracing the necessary risk, because this is the future of medicine, a very important future of medicine. And I think actually that the underlying technologies are now more realized, more there, if you will, that are going to allow, I think, over the next 5 to 7 years, an incredible pace of development in the field of regenerative medicine. And so, you know, we're positive, we're confident, and we are investing in this area because we actually see it as an important vector of two that really are at the underpinning of our own particular strategy. Now, inside Life Technologies, we have a saying called sequence to function, which is our whole strategy is about being there at the very beginning to understand the DNA and then moving it all the way from that initial understanding out to the function in the cell, in the context of the tissue. And creating the overall tool set and toolkit for really great pioneering minds to then go create this incredible new value proposition of regenerative medicine. And so in sequence to function, we then have these two vectors that I'll just briefly explain of how we think about the future. And in the world of sequencing or genetic analysis, you can see some of our wares out there, but you know, the bottom line is that we got into that business years and years ago. We were the prime contractor for the Human Genome Project, and we have remained absolutely committed to understanding all aspects of genetic analysis and having all the tool sets necessary to drive that first part of sequence in the sequence to function mission. And the latest manifestation is this ion torrent technology that we invested about $750 million in for a company with no revenue, but one that we thought actually could revolutionize the ability to read an entire genome in literally an hour or two for just a fraction of what it takes today. And if you could have that type of technology, it would lead to an explosion of genetic analysis. Now, the other vector then in sequence to function for us at Life Technologies is understanding what's going on in that functional aspect in the context of the cell. And over the last 8 years, we have been building up that overall toolkit to be hopefully a world leader in all the necessary pieces and parts of technologies you need. Whether it's in visualization techniques in terms of fluorescent dyes or quantum dots to see migration of cells in vivo as you potentially are injecting them, to beads that allow for proper separation technologies, other expansion technologies, to where today, as you maybe heard from my colleague yesterday, Chris Armstrong, we do believe we have a very important toolkit to allow that overall functional perspective to take place. Now, you know, we're actually quite emboldened that these investments are smart, that we are and have been looking at the right kind of limits of the frontier. And you can see it now even with some of your sponsors for this important meeting, whether it's the acquisition of advanced biohealing by Shire or Cephalon's $2 billion investment in Mesoblast. I think that the world of pharmaceuticals are waking up that this is going to be the next frontier. It is a defendable franchise. It is where the science now is taking us, and many, many therapies are going to be reliant on kind of a cellular-based approach. And so at least for us as kind of humble farmers doing tools and technologies, we think this is where over the next 5 to 7 years the most exciting part of the business is going to be. And I would just second Gil's comments that I do believe the leadership in this room and outside of this room has a real obligation to pull together and think about this national alliance that he was speaking of. In fact, we just became members of the alliance, and we intend to throw our full weight behind this to work with the alliance to make sure that we have a consistent, uniform strategy across the regulatory framework, the reimbursement framework, and just the overall support funding framework so that this important science can lead to really great cures over the next couple of years. We stand ready and we're excited because we think actually the horizon that we see is nearer term and incredibly bright. So with that, what I'd like to do is welcome up our panelists, and we'll get kicked off with our very first session. Thanks. Let me just briefly introduce to you our panelists. Mahendra Rao, a former colleague of mine, now with the NIH, and really importantly leading the Center for Regenerative Medicine, working with Francis Collins. And I'll have Mahendra say a few introductory comments. Gil, you know, obviously, leading the Athersys company, CEO, but also importantly the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, where he's taken a leadership role with that. Susan Solomon, leading the New York Stem Cell Foundation, and Matthias Steiger with Roche, head of partnering in regenerative medicine and in other important areas for technology partnering. So welcome all of you. Thank you very much for joining us. And perhaps just as before we get into the questions I have given them, and soon time will give to you, I'd like each one of our panelists to just say a few words of how you see the state of regenerative medicine, and importantly, one thing you would like to see happen over the next 12 months to help this field advance.
It's a nice open-ended question.
There we go. You can't go wrong with that question, Andrew.
So I feel the field is really quite exciting, and it's pretty active, and it really looks to me that the field is here to stay. So in that sense, it seems stable. Of course, because it's new and it's dynamic, I think there are going to be lots of changes as well. And personally, if I had to think of one single thing that I'd want to have happen in the next 12 months, is I'd like there to be some sort of consensus on standards, because that's a big piece that's missing. And when you need to move forward, this is the right time when you have to have that sort of consensus in any field.
Thank you. Matthias?
Yes, I also think that the field of regenerative medicine has made big progress in the past years, and also in the future. Obviously, in the near-term future, we will see more scientific progress, which we are very much looking forward and also contributing. Roche has filed our first patents also in this field, and therefore, I mean, that's over the next 12 months we would like to see, or we expect, you know, big steps forward also in science as well as clinical trial outcomes.
Well, I certainly would agree with all of my colleagues that this is an incredibly exciting time and a very positive time for regenerative medicine in the field. And I think that for all of our counterparts in finance, they should spend much more time with us, because we are really looking at the most extraordinary discoveries. And I think the challenge is to be able to manage through the change, as Mahendra said, but also to develop those standards, but also retain the kind of flexibility, because it is such an early days.
So I think each of the other panels have hit on some really key points, and I think that from an alliance perspective, what we would really like to achieve over the next 12 months is to see greater traction and tangibility around the creation of a national strategy in regenerative medicine. If you think about it, we've created national strategies across many other industry sectors and many other technology platforms that can have a profound impact on our national economy. I believe that the time is right, not actually just for a national strategy, but literally for an international initiative in regenerative medicine. I think the technology warrants that. The impact of this can be profound. I think the process has to start with a strategic assessment of what we're doing and where the gaps are and what needs to be done so that we can ultimately achieve that international strategy in the way that we envision it. And that's exactly what the Alliance is focused on achieving. And a big part of that is something that Mahendra mentioned, which is identifying and working with the regulatory agencies, the FDA and others around the world, to establish a clear set of standards and a clear regulatory path so that these technologies can get into clinical development more efficiently, can actually achieve well-defined goals in the clinical development process, and then ultimately get us that much closer to having the kind of clinical impact that we all hope for and envision.
Gil, let me build off that comment then. So in terms of this national strategy, maybe the parallel would be vaccines, which required a particular focus on liability, as well as creating a profitable mechanism by which vaccines could be developed. So that aspect of biotech needed a focused strategy. Now you're saying one is needed for regenerative medicine. Why? What is it about regenerative medicine that requires its own particular strategy?
Well, I think if you think about the major challenges that we face from a healthcare system, and it's not just in the United States, it's literally a global issue. We're faced with an unprecedented shift in demographics in terms of an aging population. That's having profound effects on our global healthcare needs and requirements. Traditional technologies, whether it's pharmaceuticals, biotechnology-based biologics and the like, even devices, have only had a very limited impact in a lot of the areas that we consider to have the greatest need. So there are various forms of cardiovascular disease, stroke, neurological conditions like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, many others, diabetes, so a broad range of things that we could go down. I think what most people here today would recognize and passionately believe in is that regenerative medicine is an area that is well positioned to address many, if not all, of those different challenges that we face. And it's those challenges that are really driving healthcare costs in a profound way that are really the big thing that we have to solve for. So I think we're faced with an area of technology that many people would view as having transformational potential. We have a lot of somewhat chaotic activity that is not necessarily as well coordinated as it might be, with a lack of clear standards and a framework that actually can help enable this, and a need for validated tools and technologies to help drive this process forward. And in my mind, it's very analogous to the situation that we faced with the Human Genome Project over a decade ago, which was there was a phenomenal opportunity, but in order to really capitalize on the opportunity, we needed what we need, I think, now is an unprecedented public-private partnership and a well-coordinated set of activities that extends beyond the border of what we're doing just here in California or in the United States. It's truly international in scope and really requires kind of a new way of thinking about how to work together to make that happen.